At his peak, David Boston was unstoppable, a Pro Bowl monster who made defenses look helpless. In 2001, he led the NFL in receiving yards and looked like the future of the position. Size, speed, power, he had it all. But behind the numbers was a man unraveling. You know the player, but do you know how it all fell apart? David Boston grew up in Humble, Texas, but there was nothing humble about the way he played football. His father was an NFL line judge, so David didn't just watch the game, he understood it. From a young age, he studied routes, absorbed the rules, and moved like he was built for Sundays. But this wasn't just a kid with football in his blood. It was a kid with a body that didn't make sense. By the time he hit high school, he was dominating both sides of the ball. 67 catches, 1,145 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 88 tackles on defense. Coaches said he trained like he was chasing ghosts. Opponents couldn't stop him. Scouts couldn't ignore him. Every blue blood program came knocking. Florida, Texas, Michigan, Miami, but Boston didn't want sunshine or comfort. He wanted the biggest stage. "I wanted to play where the games mattered most," he later said, "where every Saturday felt like a championship." He chose Ohio State, and the second he stepped on campus, the weight room became his sanctuary. He didn't just want to be great, he wanted to be bigger, faster, scarier than any receiver the Big Ten had ever seen. By mid-freshman year, he was starting. By year 2, he was wrecking defensive game plans, 73 catches, 970 yards, 14 touchdowns, and delivered the knockout blow in the 1997 Rose Bowl with 19 seconds left on the clock. It wasn't just a clutch catch, it was a calm, cold-blooded moment that made you realize, this kid's different. Then came his junior year, and Boston didn't just level up, he leveled out the competition. 85 catches, 1,435 yards, 13 touchdowns. Double coverage meant nothing. Press coverage got you embarrassed. He was too strong for corners, too fast for linebackers, and too polished for safeties. And he looked like a different species, part wideout, part Terminator. He left Ohio State with 12 school records, MVP of the Sugar Bowl, and a legacy that made him feel more like a Marvel character than a college athlete. So when he declared for the 1999 NFL Draft, there were no doubts. He had the stats, the swagger, the body, and the mentality to become a franchise cornerstone. When the Arizona Cardinals took him 8th overall, it felt inevitable. But what no one saw coming was how that same relentless drive to be more jacked, more dominant, more untouchable would also be the very thing that led to his downfall. When the Arizona Cardinals drafted David Boston 8th overall in 1999, they weren't just picking a wide receiver, they were gambling on a savior. The team was stuck in a cycle of irrelevance. No stars, no swagger, no hope. Boston walked in with all three. He was 6 feet 2 inches, 228 pounds, built like a linebacker but moved like a track star. The moment he stepped on the field, you could feel it. This wasn't just another draft pick. This was the future. His rookie year showed flashes, but by year 2, the league took notice. 71 catches, 1,156 yards, 7 touchdowns. He didn't just break out, he bullied his way into the conversation. And then came 2001, 1,598 yards, NFL receiving title, first team All-Pro, Pro Bowl, franchise record. At 23 years old, David Boston wasn't chasing greatness. He was greatness. Defenses knew what was coming. They still couldn't stop it. He outmuscled press coverage, high-pointed everything, and stiff-armed corners like they owed him money. Highlight reels turned into horror films for DBs. Every Sunday, he looked less like a player and more like a problem. The only bright spot on a Cardinals offense drowning in mediocrity. For the first time in years, Arizona had a star. Someone to believe in, someone to build around. But stardom? It came at a cost. Behind the production, the pressure was mounting. He was expected to carry a broken team, every drop, every week. The hits stacked up, the spotlight got hotter, and then it cracked. In March 2002, everything shifted. A DUI arrest, positive tests for cocaine and marijuana. The headlines hit harder than any safety. Suddenly, Boston's dominance wasn't the story anymore. His unraveling was. The Cardinals, a franchise that had finally found a face, backed away. Despite his elite numbers, they let him walk in free agency. No extension, no negotiation, just done. To fans, it made no sense. To the front office, it was simple. The risks now outweighed the rewards. Injuries, distractions, instability. The body that once looked untouchable was breaking down. The trust, gone. And the myth of David Boston was starting to splinter. He entered free agency with gaudy stats and red flags, a human contradiction. Still elite, still dangerous, still unpredictable. The next chapter would offer a fresh start. But the cracks were already deep, and what came next would push him past the point of no return. In 2003, David Boston signed a 7-year, $47 million deal with the San Diego Chargers. $12 million guaranteed. One message: be the face of this franchise. Boston saw it as validation, a new stage, a fresh start. But from the moment he arrived, the unraveling began. His numbers looked fine, 880 yards, 7 touchdowns. But inside the locker room, something was off. He skipped practices, argued with coaches, clashed with strength coach Dave Redding so violently, the team suspended him. Chargers GM A.J. Smith called him moody, with inconsistent habits. Translation: unreliable, uncoachable, unstable. Behind the muscle and the numbers, Boston was slipping. The Chargers had seen enough. After just one season, they pulled the plug, trading him to the Miami Dolphins. A $47 million experiment, abandoned after one season. That's how fast it went sideways. But this wasn't about money. It was about control, and Boston was losing his. Miami gave him one last shot. He never made it to week 1. Before he played a single down, Boston was suspended 4 games for violating the league's substance policy. Caught using HCG, a hormone tied to steroid cycles and performance enhancement. The whispers about his transformation? They were now headlines, and the evidence was undeniable. Then came the crushing blow. A torn knee ligament during a preseason practice. Season over. Reputation shattered. Body breaking. Again. The Dolphins brought him back in 2005 on a vet min deal. More mercy than belief. But Boston wasn't Boston anymore. Just 4 catches, 80 yards, a shell of the weapon he used to be. Miami cut ties, and the league moved on. In 2006, Tampa Bay became the next team to take a chance. By 2007, it blew up again. Another DUI. But this one was different. Toxicology showed GHB in his system, a dangerous central nervous system depressant, often abused as a club drug. The levels weren't trace. They were described by experts as unnatural. The Bucs released him. No press conference, no press release, just gone. Boston's final attempt came in Canada. A 1-game stint with the Toronto Argonauts in 2008. 1 catch, 4 yards. A stress fracture ended it all. Silently, permanently. This wasn't a crash. It was a slow-motion collapse. Suspensions, arrests, injuries, silence. The man who once led the NFL in receiving yards was now invisible, trapped between the ghost of his own potential and the weight of every bad decision that followed. David Boston didn't just fall off. He eroded, slow, silent, and irreversible. And by the time it was over, no one was asking how good he could have been. They were asking what the hell happened. Long after the stadiums emptied and the cameras stopped rolling, David Boston's name resurfaced, not on highlight reels, but in a courtroom. In 2012, Boston stood before a judge in Florida, convicted of aggravated battery. He had punched a woman so violently she needed 10 stitches. The same hands that once snatched touchdowns in traffic now left a lasting scar for the wrong reasons. But what the judge said next changed everything. He pointed to Boston's history of concussions, of repeated head trauma, not to excuse the violence, but to explain it. For the first time, the destruction Boston caused was being traced back to the destruction he endured. The hits didn't just break his body, they may have rewired his brain. This wasn't new for Boston. Back in 2007, he'd been arrested for DUI, GHB was in his system at levels so high, forensic experts called it unnatural. That wasn't partying. That was self-destruction. And it wasn't random. It was a pattern, a spiral, one that had started long before anyone noticed. From Pro Bowl to police blotter. The fall wasn't just physical, it was neurological. Boston was never formally diagnosed with CTE, but his story walks like it, talks like it, crashes like it. The same traits that once made him uncoverable, explosiveness, aggression, edge, now made him unstable. The power that once terrified cornerbacks became a threat to everyone around him, including himself. And this is where the story stops being just about Boston, because medical research is catching up, and what it's showing is brutal: depression, mood swings, memory loss, impulse control issues, symptoms not of aging, but of years spent absorbing punishment for a paycheck. Boston's 2012 sentencing wasn't just the end of his freedom, it was the unveiling of something darker, a warning about the invisible wounds football leaves behind. And what did the league offer when the lights went out? Nothing. No real support system, no plan, no fallback. Boston went from being the most jacked receiver in the NFL to dealing with trauma, addiction, and silence, alone. And he's not the only one. The NFL sells toughness like a brand. But what happens when that toughness turns inward? When a player spends years ignoring pain, then finally listens to it, and it's screaming? Boston's fall wasn't just a collapse. It was a failure of the systems that built him, cheered for him, and then let him rot the second the numbers dried up. His story isn't just about wasted talent. It's about what happens when the pursuit of greatness ignores the cost. David Boston gave everything to the game: speed, strength, health, control. In the end, all he got in return was broken. From Pro Bowls to prison walls, his legacy isn't just a warning to players, it's a wake-up call for the entire sport. David Boston was built to dominate, and for a moment, he did. He shattered records, bullied defenders, and looked like the future of football. But beneath the muscle and the myth was a man unraveling, pulled down by injuries, isolation, and invisible damage no stat sheet could show. His fall wasn't just about bad decisions. It was about a system that chews up talent, praises toughness, and walks away when the lights go out. So here's the question: what do we owe players after the game stops? Is the NFL doing enough to protect the men who made it what it is? Or are guys like David Boston just collateral damage, praised in their prime, forgotten in their fall? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let me know. What lesson should today's stars take from David Boston's story? And will anyone actually learn it?